Welcome to another episode of Daddy Confessions. It's been a while. It's been a long while. Daddy Confessions is back. I hope you are tuning in, ready to learn a little bit of something. I have two friends of the pod. They've been here a lot for me over the years. This podcast has been going on for almost 4 years now in some relative form or fashion. So I'm going to have Tunde and Ty introduce themselves to the people, and then we're going to hop right into it.
Go ahead, Ty.
I'm Ty. No, I'm joking. I'm Ty, better known as, or also known as Tyren, my full name. Pleasure to be here, John. Appreciate you for having me. For those who don't know me, I've been on John's podcast a few times. I am a father of four. Blended family 2 times. Blended family 2 times. Oldest bonus son is 25. Youngest bonus daughter is 19. The other 2 in between are 19, getting ready to be 20, and another one's 21. So getting ready to be 22. So that's me.
Ty got the old kids.
Yeah, you got the old kids. I mean, my name's Tunde. I've also been on the podcast for a while. Excited to be back. It sounds like we're about to have a conversation about something that we discussed 4 years ago. So think about like COVID time. So super excited to kind of get everybody's perspective on that. I have 2 kids. My daughter is about to turn 14 in 2025. And then my son is 11. So got 2 kids, boy and girl. It's been interesting. It's been a whirlwind so far, but excited about it.
Man, I could have sworn your kids was older than that by now.
She slow down, bro. Nah, it's not old enough. I mean, I just said 14. She turned 13. I'm saying 14 already.
Yeah, that's crazy, right?
Nice.
So yeah, and I have the 11-year-old and a 7-year-old right now, and it's been very, very interesting watching the kids grow up over the past 4 years since we did this podcast together, but watching them grow up in general. And so my hope is take a little bit of time today and just chat about what your experiences have been, over the past 4 years since we had this conversation with your kids, and B, to really talk a little bit more about like what are some of the things that we are really trying to put into perspective for our kids, both young and old, as we move into 2025. Like some of the things that we have to deal with and have conversations with them about in as we move into 2025.
Gotcha. Okay.
So I'll first I will turn it over. First, I'll say I won't turn it over to you guys. I'll say for myself that what I have experienced over the past 4 years has been, a lot of individual growth for both my boys and for me. During that time, man, I'm almost 100% sure during that time we started family counseling.
Mm-hmm.
We've been going to family counseling for a little while now, just to kind of keep the boys in the mindset of like what they need in order to feel comfortable having conversations with us and not feeling like they are constantly being moved from one thing to the next, right? Especially when our lives get so busy. And so that's been something that's been really important for us. We also tried couples counseling, and I say tried because we had a bad couples counselor. He was not great. The man had all kinds of stuff that kept popping up, and he kept canceling meetings. It was a running joke in our house that the meeting was going to get moved to a different time slot. And it inevitably did every week. Every time we met with him, the meeting got moved. So we ended up dropping the the couples counseling, hoping to pick that back up at some point. We can find somebody who's a little bit more reliable. But that was a very interesting piece. And I have actually gone to individual therapy again. So, and that was something that for me was always on the table, was always in the cards to get back to that. And I guess I'm talking about a lot of therapy. That is not all that has happened in my family or in my life. But that's been some of the like the catalyst pieces for me in terms of like how I've been talking about and dealing with different issues and instances in my kids' lives, and in my family as a whole. It's been really interesting. One of the things that popped up for me, and I'll tell you guys this, and we can talk about this a little bit, is I think we talked about this before, but I think it's important to get back to it. Is that moment of the importance of how much information is too much information to share with your kids about like what is going on around them, right? Like we beyond the riots of January 6th. We are in a place where Ty got kids who could be having kids soon. You know what I'm saying? Tunde's got a daughter about to go in high school, and we got boys going into middle school. Like at what point do you share information with them that could be life changing, or could change their perspective on a moment, and what is too much?
I think first, John, I want to like commend you in terms of therapy. I think that's something, especially within Black community, we don't do enough of. I think that a lot of times there's taboo around therapy, different versions of it, and we tend to, especially as Black men, try to like take that on upon ourselves. So the fact that you're able to reach out for help, I think, is an incredible thing to do, and is like inspiring. Funny enough, we had a family meeting a couple days ago. We tried to do that going into the new year, and that was one of the things that we're trying to do as a family, is also do therapy, because therapy doesn't always have to revolve around trauma, right? Like, it's like some bad happens and that's why. Sometimes it's just trying to just
maintain.
just maintain, trying to keep things moving. So I just wanted to just take time out and say that. Now, in terms of like your question on how much information is too much information, or how much information would you want to share, I think it all depends on your kids. Like, I think for me, it's like my son, who is the 11-year-old, he can handle things like that. I think he can handle it straight. He doesn't want to sugarcoat it. He's the type of kid that likes to kind of retain the information in its raw form, and then he processes and comes back with questions. Where my daughter, you kind of have to have a bit of a delicate touch. You have to kind of give to her in pieces, let her process it as you're giving it to her, and then decide on how much more or how much less to give her. So I think it all depends. I think ultimately you don't want to. You want to be able to say the truth. I think one thing that I've tried to do is to be honest, right? The world is cruel. The world is what it is, and you have to. I rather them get it from me directly than get it out there in the harsh world where it's unfiltered, and sometimes you don't have that support to kind of process it. So I think it all depends on your kid, and depending on how your kid can handle it, you give it to them how you feel like they can handle it, stand back and process it, and take it from there.
That's interesting you say that, Tunde, because as I think about your dynamic with your kids specifically, how your daughter's older than your son.
Yeah.
Interesting that you say that your daughter, you have to give it to her in different chunks.
Yeah.
And sugar, not necessarily sugarcoat
Yeah,
things.
but like you gotta
You kind of have to, give it to her how she can handle it in a way based on differently than you can give it to your son, who you said you can just give it to, who you can say stuff to, without any filter, and things like that. And I think as men and as husbands, I know for me specifically, that's the way that I try to raise my kids, in a way that I'm going to give you what the world is going to give you times 10. So that way, when the world gives it to you, it won't be a shock. It won't be a surprise. It won't be like, hey, let me, ooh, da, 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 so, oh my gosh, I'm in shock because I wasn't expecting this. My dad has already prepared me to, he's already fussed me out. He's already cussed me out. He's already been hard on me, and things, in that type of nature. But of course my situation is a little bit different than both of yours, because my kids are older. But in that same vein, I've been having those conversations with my kids for quite some time. I've never been one to kind of hold back to say, oh, let me sugarcoat things, because I don't think you can handle this. And man, it's maybe because my kids have been able to handle things,
Yeah.
more than, other people's, kids are able to do. But now that my kids are at a young adult stage in their lives,
Yeah.
again, 19 through 25, they're in the world at this
Right.
point in time. They
Right.
are seeing, things that they have been, that I have think anyway that I've tried my best to prepare them for, through their 19 to 25 years of life thus far. Obviously they still got a lot more life to live, and there's a lot more stuff and to experience along the way. I don't believe in, like I mentioned, I don't necessarily believe in sugarcoating things per se. But I do to agree, to a certain degree, like Tunde said, giving it to you in the way in which you can handle it. Because if you can't handle it and it is too much, I don't want to traumatize my kids. However, I don't want to, again, they're going to figure it out, and they're going to find out whether it be TV, YouTube, school, their friends, one way or another. I'd rather it come from me than it come from, one of those other avenues. My wife and I, we talk about even, now that we have young adults, and even prior to young adults, Tunde probably will see this very soon, with drugs and alcohol.
Yeah.
Drugs, alcohol, and sex, for that
Yeah.
matter.
Yeah.
Those things start at the ages of Tunde's kids, if not sooner. So even in those conversations, I feel like, we having those conversations about political, as you mentioned there, John, conversations about family, conversations about, there's been, I don't know, Tunde, if you know, but, even in our immediate household, we've dealt with some family trauma that specifically, or through my wife, that she's been dealing with over the past couple of years, that's like, hey, we're not going to sugarcoat, hey, this is what happened. And this is what happened with grandma or grandpa, or, whatever the situation. So they know that, hey, we're not a perfect family. These things happen in life. So if it happens to you, don't be freaked out, those type of things. So,
Yeah.
I think what's interesting on that time is I think about, like, in terms of my daughter, is that I always tell this to her, is that, like, it's a, like, we have a privilege here, like, in terms of how I'm delivering it, right? So again, it's like you kind of, you got to know your kid. Like, we dealt with something, like, you talk about, like, trauma and, like, family. Like, it was a moment where, like, we had something, like, with my wife, where she was really ill, and like, again, like, you kind of see how people navigate through that was in front of us, and we had to deal with that. And, like, my son was, again, it's not even the fact that he was a boy and it was like that masculinity that I was trying to promote. It was just, that's just how he is. He's one of those kids that just can take it black or white, and he knew what my wife was going through and was there and supportive, and he understood that, like, he had to do what he needed to be able to help. Where, like, my daughter is kind of in that space, and she's in that fog and can't move forward, and you kind of have to talk her through it. And my job at that moment is to remind her that this is life, and, like, it's okay to kind of, like, to be in your feelings and kind of, like, process through the grief, but you got to move through it, right? Because life just keeps moving on, and that strength is also going to translate to your mother and everybody around you. You need to be able to do that. So, like, those are the things that where it took me a while to learn, meaning that, like, I used to do it one way. Whoever fits, whoever doesn't, it is what it is, right? As like, as fathers, like, that's kind of the way it is, especially if you're trying to prepare for the world. But and then as kind of time goes on, it's like, if I want to be able to reach them, I got to pivot, right? And I need a pivot in a way for them to be able to know I'm pivoting, but know that, like, the real world is not going to pivot for you, right? So,
yeah, it's interesting because I had a conversation with my my therapist, my counselor, recently, about a situation that happened when, so, I cut my boy's hair. We keep it in the house because I can't guarantee what's gonna happen when they go to the barbershop.
it's
And
$50
honestly,
in New York, man. It's 50,
yeah, I ain't even
$60 in
trying. I don't even
that's
know how much it
crazy.
is
I'm
here.
glad I'm out of that stage.
And one of my kids got locks, and the other one just got a big head. So we don't really do haircuts outside of the house. But anyway, so I went to go pick up some stuff for the haircut, right? So I went to go get the spray for my clippers, and we walked into this beauty supply store. And the woman in the beauty supply store, this behind the counter, was a black woman. I said, "Where's your clippers and your clipper supplies?" And she pointed me in the right direction. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, this little Asian woman like pops up. She's just standing there. You know, she ain't doing nothing. She's just standing there. Ain't asking us what we need, if she can help us or nothing like that. And so I was like, guys, both of the boys were with me. I said, look, y'all stay close. You know what I'm saying? Don't touch nothing. Because that woman over there is there to watch to make sure you ain't stealing nothing in her store. And I said it loud.
Yeah.
I said it loud. I ain't sugarcoated. I ain't say it soft. I said it loud. And he was like, and Trey said, what? And I was like, yeah. I was like, son, you know, that woman over there, the woman standing right there, is there to watch and make sure you're not stealing anything in her store. So, you know, let's just grab what we came to get, and then we'll get on out of here. And I, again, did not sugarcoat it, didn't say it low, wasn't like, you know, whispering it to him or nothing like that. And he turned to me, he's like, Daddy, I think you're right. I was like, yeah, I know I'm right. I know that, because what other reason in this big old store is she standing right here with the three little black people? Like, nobody else in the store. She ain't got to stand here. She ain't asked us if we need anything. So, you know, and I told my therapist about that moment, because we just been talking a lot about, like, you know, me feeling like I had to protect my kids and being a protector and all that good stuff. And we can talk about that as well a little bit.
Yeah,
but
I do have a question or comment about that as well, but I'll wait.
Yeah, and so you know, as I'm talking with my therapist about this, which that's a whole nother conversation. I got a female therapist. I don't know how long that's gonna last. We'll see. It's going okay so far. Male therapists are hard to find, but anyway, whole nother conversation.
Black therapists are hard to find.
What'd you say?
I said male black therapists are hard.
Oh yeah, and she's a white woman.
Oh wow.
And I don't pull no cards when I talk with her though. I'd be like, anyway, I'd be saying all the things. So anyway, like I said, we'll see how long it lasts. But I told her, I was like, you know, like she says, you know, do you think that you like went too far with letting him know that now? And I was like, no, actually, no. I think that is exactly the right time for him to know that there are people in this world who will look at him and see someone who they should watch, even if he hasn't done anything wrong, because of the way he looks, because of the color of his skin, because of his size. And so, you know, and I actually didn't take offense to her asking the question. I actually think it was a good question to ask, because she needed to hear my response.
Teachable moment.
Yeah, which then went on, which I then went on to say, and I was like, look, I was like, you know, it is a teachable moment for him.
Yeah.
And if you think about it in terms of school, as someone who's in education, the worst thing you can do for your child is to send them off to take the test, not having prepared them at all.
Right.
And what I did was I am giving him the cliff notes. I'm giving him the study guide, so that when those moments come up when he is not with me, that he knows and understands A, what people are doing, and B, how he needs to go ahead and proceed. And then there's one or two ways I could have proceeded. I either could have just rolled out of the store, or I could take the moment to teach him what's going on and get the clipper spray, right? You know what I'm saying? Pay the $11, get the clipper spray, get out of the store. Now, will I go back there? Probably not. I ain't got no reason to go back in that place, knowing what I know. But that's the moment that I have, the teachable moment for him. And if I don't give him the cliff notes, if I don't give him the study guide, you know what I'm saying, when it's his turn to take the test, then he's going to have a hard time with it. And I prefer to give him the things that he needs in order for those moments not to hit him like a ton of bricks when they happen. And that's what I felt that moment was.
That's interesting, because I completely understand why you did what you did, and I have no qualms. I would have done the exact same thing. And I daggone sure would have not supported that store by purchasing whatever it is that you need from that store, knowing there's 1,000,001 other beauty supply stores around. And honestly, I intentionally try to find Black-owned, you know,
they all
supply
owned by the
places
same people
as well. Um, but when but so my thought is I think you're right, John. I definitely agree with what you did. Because again, when your sons are not around, they need to know that there are people who are like that when you walk into their stores. But then I look at the flip side and I go, okay, well, as a store owner who probably has had stuff stolen, I may not necessarily want to follow this specific black person, but I do need to. I'll be a little bit more discreet. I'm gonna look on the camera. I ain't about to go follow you around. I'm gonna look on the camera and just see where you at. Because just in case, make sure you don't steal stuff. But so I can understand in that direction. But I feel like we do need to make sure that we are preparing our young men, as well as making sure that even if they're not, that we are taking care of the young men that are out there, even if they're not ours, for that instance. Because let's say your sons were to go into that store and something like that were to happen, and they were not with you, and you do, y'all have young men who go into a store and somebody does follow them around and accuse them of something that they did not do. Then they're like, oh crap, my daddy didn't prepare me for something like this.
Mm-hmm.
Key example, the other day, I was coming home from church. I actually went to church, went to eat with my wife, and we were coming up the road and we happened to see an accident, right? We literally just came around the corner right as the accident had just finished happening. Like, it was a lady laid out on the side of the road near her car, and there was another car going up an embankment of on the other side of the road. And so I slowed down and I asked my wife, and I was like, should I stop? And she was like, yeah, let's stop because the lady on the side of the road looks black. So I said, okay, cool beans. So I jumped out the car, went over there. It was a bunch of people out there already, kind of just running to the situation to see if they can help, this, that, and the third. I didn't want to be in the way, but I wanted to see what happened. So I did realize there was a lady on the road who was black, and there was another lady who was comforting her on the ground. And I did not see who the other person was who caused this accident. So finally, a young brother comes across the street and he's on his phone and he's just like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. And I see that he's on his own. It's a young guy. I don't know how old he was at the time. I know how old he is now, but I don't know how old he was at the time. And he's on the phone, and I realized he's talking to somebody. I thought he was on the phone with police. He was actually talking to his dad. So his dad wasn't there. Apparently, this young man caused the accident. It was wet outside, so that he lost control of his car. He overcorrected. He sideswiped the car, knocked that car, and then his car wound up. And there was another gentleman, a white guy specifically, who was walking around ranting and raving. Who did this? Why was they driving? Da 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 da. So my instinct as a black man and as a father, knowing that both parties are now black, I see this, okay, and I see this white man running around, kind of enraged, was to go to the black guy to say, all right, yo, are you okay? Are you? I see they're protecting her. Cool beans. Are you okay? Let's make sure you're okay. I've been in accidents before. I got kids, and I would, his father was not there. So I felt like I needed to step into that role just to protect him, to make sure that he was good. Because when the white guy did come over, he literally is like, yo, why would you do? So I kindly stepped in front of him and said, what we're not going to do is that. What you're not going to do is talk to this young man like this. And so I wound up talking to the young man, finding out who he was, how old he was. He was only 16. Only 16. Scared out of his mind. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Blah, 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 blah. I'm like, yo, let's get your dad here. Where's your dad? I realized you was on the phone with your dad. You hung up with your dad. Where is he? Can he get here? Oh, that's the only car that we have. All right, let me go get your dad. Matter of fact, let me call your dad. Called his dad. His dad said, I get my neighbor to please stay there with my son. I told him first off the bat, I'm a brother. So you got a young black man as a son. So I'm here to protect your son, to make sure nothing happens to you. He said, please stay there with my son, and I will be there very shortly. Please tell me where you are. Told him where he was. He came down, and I, was again, because I didn't want the police to come over there and harass that man. I didn't want anybody else come over there and harass that young man. And so same situation like you just mentioned, John, like, if your sons do get to the point where they're 15, 16, 17 in a store by themselves, and an Asian lady or a white lady or a white man or whoever it could be, it could even be somebody black for that matter, who decides to follow them around the store and accuse them for something that they did not do, or just give them a hard time just because of the color of their skin and who they are, it's inappropriate. So I definitely believe us as men, we definitely have to take more accountability and step up for those, even if they're not our kids, but then also continue to prepare our kids for those situations, because like you said, real life does happen.
Yeah, I think for me, like, my takeaway, from these stories is just having them be aware of their surroundings, right? Like, you just can't go in, like how the kids, how kids can be sometimes, just go in there blindly, right? Like you got to be aware of your surroundings at all times. We don't have that privilege of just going in there blind, right? Like, John, you're talking about going in there prepared. You going into a store, you got to go in prepared, right? Like, you thinking you're just picking up some clippers, like it's just not, we just don't have that privilege, to be able to go in so frivolously. So like, I think for me, it's just, making sure that they're prepared for like whatever interaction there is, and being able to make sure that they put themselves in the best position.
Yeah.
As we talk about this particular thing, I think about, and Ty, maybe you can talk about it from the perspective of having, older kids in which your kids have experienced, both boys and girls. Sometimes it's not our kids. Sometimes it's the kids that they're with that are actually the ones you have to be most concerned about, right? Because sometimes, like, it can be any number of situations that occur, right? It could be as something. So, for instance, I didn't go with them, but you guys both know that my wife and her sister do this trip to, they do like this little cousins trip or whatever with their kids. And so they were in Atlantic City this past weekend. And what happened was they were on the elevator. So my oldest son, so Trey, ran into this group of kids, probably close to his age, maybe a little bit older than him. Apparently this is the way it was conveyed to me. And these kids were roaming around the hotel, right? They were going up and down in the elevator. They were, like hanging out in the hotel lobby, all kinds of stuff. Now, these kids ain't related to nobody that we know. And my wife was very sure that they were not staying in the hotel. And she told that to Trey. She was like, these kids are not staying in the hotel, Trey. And he was like, how did you know? It was like, well, next day she sees them riding their bikes through the lobby at a hotel. Now, I don't even know how they get away with that. But anyway, so now, but it could have been a situation where he may have been hanging out with them in the lobby or something like that, and been connected with them by virtue of being in the proximity of them. Like, how do you handle, conversations with your kid about like proximity, either people that you know, people that you don't know, and how you handle situations like that when things arise, right? Like, you can tell your kid, don't hang around that person because they bad news, but they're gonna hang around who they want to hang around.
Yeah, that's definitely a tough one, John. And right, as someone who has young adults, kids, as they're growing through their teenage years, that's something that I've definitely had to have conversations with my kids about, because we're not always going to be around, which is one of the reasons why I definitely believe in preparation. Preparing my kids for, obviously we can't prepare from everything, but as much as we can. But I also think that it's important that we don't lose sight as parents, of who they are and their ages and what they're doing in the environment in which they live in, which is differently than the environment which we, grew up in the 80s and 90s. It's different, but it's, it's the same, but it's a little bit different. Obviously they have a lot more access to a lot more things than we did at that particular age. So it's definitely preparing them to be aware of their surroundings, and who they hang out with, and letting them know that, yes, you can be guilty by association. Whether you've done something or not, you can be guilty and be held liable, by just association of the fact of who you necessarily hang with. And even as young adults, we still go through that same thing. One of the things that I tell my daughter, you all know, but for those who don't know, my daughter's the one who actually lives directly in the house with us, outside of when she's at school in college. My boys, primarily stay with their mom when they're not at college, but they do come over and they, have fun as well. But anytime they get ready to go out, specifically my daughter, the main thing that I always tell her is have fun and be responsible and and just be careful. Because so have fun. Obviously, you're a teenager. Do teenager stuff. You're supposed to do teenager stuff. Be responsible, because at the end of the day, you got to be held liable for whatever it is that you do. So if your friends decide to, hey, we're gonna go, steal some stuff out of a store, then make sure whatever it is, you let them go steal stuff out of the store. You can hang outside the store. Or you say, you know what? I think I'm gonna go elsewhere, and then I'll hook up with y'all later.
Yeah,
So that
don't
way
be the
you're
getaway driver either, though.
you
She's like, I didn't go to the store, Daddy, but I was driving them away.
exactly. Don't be the
Oh my God.
and be smart. Be smart. So that way you know if my friends are going to do X, Y, and Z, I'm not the driver.
Right.
So that way you know that hey, if I do drive, I'm driving elsewhere. Well, I'll meet y'all at a whole separate location after the fact. Necessary. Again, be smart, have fun, be responsible. Because that's literally what I tell my daughter each and every time she leaves out of the house to say, Dad, hey, I'm going to go hang out with this friend, or I'm going to go do X, Y, and Z, because we can't always be there for everything. My wife and I were just having a conversation the other day, because we know, this is funny, even the friends that, are the innocent friends that, the ones that you think, oh, that's a respectful young man, or that's a respectful young girl, are the biggest troublemakers at the end of the day.
It's a good friend, ain't it?
Exactly.
You're like, I see.
Eddie, it's the Eddie Haskell effect. Eddie Haskell.
Right. So it's like, I know better than what you think I do know. So like, hey, just be careful with hanging with X, Y, and Z. Or like, they like, I know now they're into smoking and they're into drinking and they're into these type of things. And I don't know, I know my daughters tried things. I know my sons have tried things. I know they have done things that I'm like, hey, be smart, and just be smart in what you do. Because at the end of the day, these things that you're doing now affects you. My kids are at an age where y'all can be held legally liable for anything y'all do. Y'all can go to jail.
Yeah.
Guess what? Daddy ain't getting in trouble for what you do because you did what you did. You can go to jail. So be responsible at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's a tough one because I'm going through it right now, especially with my daughter. Again, this is where like you got to know the different dynamics. My son is definitely more independent. He's not a follower, does not care. Like, you out there smoking, doing something crazy, he's going the other way, and it's like there's no FOMO whatsoever. Well, my daughter is the complete opposite, right? So for her, it's like it's an environment thing. So who she hangs out with is even more important than it was, right, dealing with my son. So for her, it's like just really trying to instill that like foundation, like, because again, you're right, we're not always going to be there. I keep telling her, like, you want to be that friend that, like, when your friends are starting to do something crazy and you're like, I'm out, they already know you're not going to be a part of it. Like, it's like, yo, Shadi, I already know you got crazy parents, so I already know you're not about it, so we're going to holler at you later. And like, that's the type of friend you need to be, right? You need to be that friend that's just like, not about that. They know that you're about X, Y, and Z, about your books, you're about whatever. And when they starting to go left, there's no judgment. You go left, I go right, and it's all love, right? And the friends that peer pressure you start going left with them are your real friends. And that's what like we're trying to instill in her right now, is that, you got to be smart, right? You got to be smart. But sometimes, like, and I think this is the part that I'm learning, what's smart to us is very different to what's smart for them. Like, you know what I'm saying? When you saying be smart, it's like, they're like, I am being smart. Like, you know what I'm saying? But it's like, you gotta be, that's why it's like, I've learned that you have to be really specific. Like, they're going to drugstore to steal something, don't go inside, but like, she'll be outside waiting for them to drive them away. Like, it's like, no, do not put yourself in those situations. Walk away. Like, because then it's like, well, Daddy, I did exactly what, like, so you like, it's like, we're trying to build the common sense, right? Because again, it's not necessarily common for them.
Common sense, common.
Yeah, common sense ain't common. Like, that's for real. So again, for me, it's just like, you're right. I think just preparing them in that sense, but also like trying to be as specific as possible as to what is right and what's wrong until they finally get it. Because it's not always common.
And I can honestly say I never expected it to be that difficult.
Yeah.
I don't know if I was that kid that you had to like be that specific with things about, like, but like literally
time, John. It really is a different time.
Because I feel that way about a lot of things. I have to describe, if I want my kid to get something from me, son, go pick up the thing in the kitchen. It is shaped like this. It's got this color. It's sitting in this particular location. Like, if I don't do all of that,
if it's not right there and it's behind something, move the other thing out the way.
Yeah.
Yo, I kid you not. Quick story. My son gonna hate me, but this is daddy confession. the other day, there was some barbecue chicken that was in the refrigerator. It was left over from the day before. It was good. My wife did a good job with the chicken. And I was like, Trey, I know you want something for lunch. Or it might have been dinner. I can't remember what time it was. Go ahead and have that barbecue chicken. He was like, ooh, yeah, it was good. I'll go grab it. It was dinner time. And I remember it was dinner time because I was downstairs hanging out. I didn't want anything to eat. I came up later on. It might have been like 7 or 8 o'clock. And I was like, oh, did you eat the chicken? He's like, I couldn't find it. You couldn't find it? Like, we just had it the night before. Yeah. We don't even keep leftovers in the refrigerator for more than a day. Yeah. It was 3 containers in the refrigerator. Okay. Yeah. One had potato salad in it, one of it had greens in it, and the other one had barbecue chicken. Now, now where he was looking for, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. But it took everything in me not to be like, I was like, well, I guess you ain't eating dinner tonight. It's time
Obviously,
to go to bed.
You ain't want it. So
you ain't want it that bad, right? You ain't look like yo, that was crazy to me. That moment right there. Yeah. And you know, we had a conversation as a family the other day. I think I don't know who started it. I don't know if it was one of the boys or my wife. But the question was asked, will we want to be a kid now or back when we grew up? And I was like, 100% back when I grew up.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know what kids is on these days. I couldn't imagine being a kid these days. Ain't nothing cool about being a kid these days. I mean, I like a hoodie just like as much as the next person, but that's all they wear.
That's all they
wear. Hoodie.
Summertime,
hoodie, summertime, midsummer. It'd be 100 degrees. You got your 100-degree hoodie. You got your 75-degree hoodie. Right. You got your 200-degree hoodie, apparently, because that's all they. Like it boggles my mind, man. I don't even know. Like, we just had to do, you know, at 11, we went into the doctor. So my son had his 11-year-old checkup, and the doctor was like, "Are you getting the HPV shot today?" I was like, let me call the boss. So I had to get my wife on the phone. And here we are getting the HPV shot for our 11-year-old. Ain't nobody talk about no HPV when we was kids.
No clue what it was, literally, until about 10 years ago.
Yo, this sounds crazy. I could not imagine being a kid these days. Could not imagine.
Well, for the people, you got to tell them what HPV is.
Human papillomavirus. It causes cancer, folks. Yeah. And it is transmitted by. I'm going to say, I don't know. I don't want to. It's mostly transmitted by oral sex.
Okay.
But as you can tell, these gentlemen here on the call, none of us really know because we ain't had no experience with that. But so I'm pretty sure it
is spread through vaginal, anal, and oral. I just looked it up.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So 11. He's 11. Yeah.
But I'm not surprised though, John. So, and reason I'm not surprised, my mother was a teacher for 30 some odd years there in Maryland, in Virginia. And I remember when I was probably in high school or maybe one of my first years in college. She taught 6th grade, and she would say, "Hey, you know," she would just tell me stories that, you know, of things that happened in school, kids, da. And one year, I remember her specifically telling me that they've had to catch kids. You know, they had caught kids in the cubbyhole. I don't know if y'all remember the cubbies that you used to put your coats and your book bags in, and they caught kids in the cubbyhole. It was a little girl giving a little boy 6th grade oral in the cubbyhole. And they caught them and had to call their parents and had to suspend them. And so I'm like, that's what I'm saying. So the times that we lived in, now mind you, again, I was college, so that was probably 18, 19, maybe, you know, let's just say 17 through maybe 19. I don't remember when exactly that was. So that was then in comparison to what, 30, 40, 30 years, 20 years, some odd years now. Yeah. I'm like, they are a lot more advanced and experiencing a lot more things now than we did back then. And even then I was old enough, like I didn't hear about that stuff when I was in elementary school.
I mean, so, I knew a girl in middle school who was pregnant. So
My friend that had a baby at 12, according to
That's
Tupac.
right. That's right. So it wasn't unheard of. You know what I'm saying? But
it wasn't the
just
norm.
it felt different. It felt different. And I don't know. Again, maybe because I'm a parent now that it feel different.
But I think that may be the thing, though, John. A lot of parents, in my opinion, want to be friends with their kids.
Yeah.
And so they're letting their kids get away with doing a lot of things that we did not have the opportunity or chance to get away with. Being involved in adult conversations, watching adult content, whether it be on TV or on their laptops or their computers. A lot. And don't get me wrong, and I can't, act like, oh, I was this innocent kid and I didn't do nothing, or I didn't have, the flexibility and freedom to do a lot of the things that I did, because I was riding the Metro bus at 10, 11, 12 by myself.
That's
DC.
right.
By myself in DC.
Yeah. All the way across DC into Virginia.
To go get my own haircut, which was only $5 to $10 at that time. Not 50. So or I ain't gonna lie, in high school I was doing things. I had sex, in middle school, I had sex in high school. So I was doing those things, but to me it was like the common sense was there. Okay, like if you're going to do these things, and these things probably my parents told me, I don't remember whether or not, but it was like, okay, if you're going to do these things, use a condom. Make sure you're in places that are protected, that you're not just out here willy-nilly just doing all types of things, like, and that common sense is not common anymore for whatever reason. Like, I feel like it's definitely our responsibility as a parent to tell both our daughters and our sons that, hey, especially as tell if you have a daughter, saying, look, these guys are going to try to persuade you to do X, Y, and Z because that's all they want. And they're going to tell you that the condom, they're allergic to condoms, or they're going to X, Y, and Z. Or you got to tell your sons, like, yo, I don't care how fine she look. I don't care how easily she want to give it up, bruh. Put one on because you can't afford a child. You can't afford an STD.
I can't afford a child. I got two. I can't afford.
So it's like, we have to do our best to impart, like you said, that common sense, because it's not common anymore. We have to be very specific as much as we can.
Okay, I'm gonna say something. I'm gonna throw this out there. I'm gonna say that we probably wasn't that bright when we was kids.
No,
and I'm gonna use myself as an example. I don't know if either one of y'all heard this story before. But when we were in high school, this was high school, okay? And Tunde and I went to Woodbury Forest School. I guess there was a situation, I don't even know how to describe it. 2 random people from 2 different schools, 2 random girls, were pen pals with me. I don't know if either one of you guys had this email pen pals. Like people, it was like a list of like email addresses out there. I don't know how they got it, but these 2 girls were emailing me through my new email addresses when email first came out. Like literally, email first came out like our freshman, sophomore year in high school. Crazy, right? And they were emailing me at my school email address, and I would be emailing them back. Or maybe it was a school email address, but anyway, it might be my Hotmail address. Emailing them back, and long conversations via email with these girls. No cell phones, so it wasn't no easy way to reach out to them, like, and just call on the phone or whatever. But letters started getting exchanged back and forth, emails. One girl went to the Hershey School in Hershey, Pennsylvania. She lived in the DMV. We scheduled a meetup at her house when we came home for break one year. I hopped on the train, Metro, by myself, rode out to her supposed house, her apartment, okay, in Tacoma Park, Maryland. I remember exactly where she lived. Well, not exactly, but I remember it was in Tacoma Park. Got off the Metro. I'm literally walking to this apartment building, this address that I got written on a piece of paper. I'm thinking the whole time, oh yeah, I'm about to go meet this chick, Like, I could have got, anything could have happened to me.
Oh yeah, anything could have happened.
Beat up.
Anything could have happened to me. Now I met the chick.
Okay.
I remember she was cute. But
thank God. get catfished.
Right, exactly.
But so this was,
Wait,
but
what?
this is before catfishing. This is, you know what I'm saying? I'm a high schooler. Like, I guess I could have got beaten up and robbed. I could have got killed. Anything could have happened. You know what I'm saying? But I wasn't that bright. I wasn't.
Yeah.
I think back on it now. Is the reason why I went.
Yeah.
I don't even think I had ever seen a picture of her
Mm.
before that. She could have been anything when I walked in there. Like,
Man.
so intelligence aside, you know what I'm saying? Maybe my son get it honest. Maybe that's why he can't find a chicken in the refrigerator. Because his father just rolling up in girls' houses that he met online. Like,
Well, I think the biggest for me, like thinking about then and now, is and I think Ty, you kind of mentioned it, is I think it's just accessibility, just getting it so much faster. Like think about when you wanted to do something crazy, you had to. It took work.
it
Like,
did.
It took work.
Yeah.
Like
There was a lot of emails exchanged before.
Yeah, think about whether it's drugs, it took work. Like
Yeah,
think about it. It's not like, because now like we're talking about like weed is like legal. Like, so how hard is it? Like, it took work trying to like look at porn. It took work. Like it just took work. You know, now it's like on the phone, it's a quick call. There's a bodega, there's a corner store where like they got like weed and bright lights that you can come in anytime. Like, it's just, so just think about having that type of accessibility at 11, at 9, and 9, 10, 11. There's just where I felt like for us, it took you a good 2-3 years to figure it out. And then when you finally did something stupid, but you like, think about like the moment where you actually left and went out to figure out what that person looked like. You like, in this day and age, you probably would be doing that 2 years earlier.
Yeah.
You'd be doing that as a 9-year-old, because
Yeah.
you already, right? You already had that access. You already going out. Like, you can FaceTime. Like, well, I don't even have to travel. I can do all that stupid stuff now. Like, and then like now you talk about AI. I could be somebody you don't even know thinking you talking to somebody. Like, it's just the technology right now and the accessibility is what scares me. So I feel like for me, as a parent, is to try to slow it down, right? It's to slow it down as much as possible, knowing that ultimately you're going to go out to the world, but let me slow it down so that like, at least I feel like you're mentally prepared, right? Keep going back to the preparation, prepared for what's out there, because it's too quick, it's too accessible. And that has to be, there's got to be negative impact on how quickly they can get it.
So I'm gonna make sure that I got a couple of episodes that everybody should watch. One about about your kids and online. You watch that video. I gave T some nuggets. Then I think he implemented some of them.
Yep.
And the
Yeah, we
other
slept
one,
together at the same time.
yeah. And you know, and so that's one of the episodes that I think everybody should check out. There's probably some more stuff that I ain't know then, but it was good at the time, and it helped. But you're right, man. The things are quick. The kids get everything quicker now. Like, things are right in their face. I mean, I knew about weed, but the way that I knew about it was I knew that there were people in my neighborhood who was selling drugs. But they were also, oddly enough, the gatekeepers. If they knew you, if they knew that you was a kid who was about something, you know what I'm saying? You knew you had parents who was about something. They kept it out of your hands. They kept you away from it.
Go ahead, man. I ain't trying to, little dude, go ahead.
They kept you away from it. Get out of here.
And that's interesting. But now, there ain't no gatekeeper.
Yeah,
man, you get that jump.
But yo, John, think about like this too, though. Like, especially the beginning when we talk about like drugs or weed, you are associating that to like something maybe negative, right? You're like kids hanging out, like that's like that was your correlation. Now it's like there's a ramen noodle spot, and then right next door is a dispensary, like to sell, like
I just saw a ramen noodle. I just saw a weed that come in a container that looked like ramen.
Yeah, like no, but you know what I'm saying? Like, so now the association for me, like drugs, is like, yo, you talk about like cat. hanging out in the corner. No, now that's what their association is. So think about it, it's not even like there's no negative connotation or like you have to be careful or like that idea of like exploring it. Because right, for us, it's like, okay, if they're doing that stuff that is bad, and even if I'm curious, I'm still like I'm still cautious, right? Because it's tied to something negative. So I need to be cautious of it, even if I'm curious. But if there isn't a negative connotation to it, they're going in there like,
which was the point that I was making earlier, right? To your point, Tunde, because if things are so accessible and you're not, and you're being, naive to what could possibly happen, and you don't know, then right, you're most likely you're just willy-nilly trying and doing anything. In comparison to knowing what the consequences of having sex without condoms, smoking anything, drinking anything, so on and so forth. So I mean, I know specifically with me and my wife, and I'd be curious to know how you all handle situations like this. That we open up the communication with our kids to say, hey, if it's something you want to try, I'd rather you try it at home, or let me educate you about it. Again, going back to being smart, because even when it comes to weed, even though it may be a bodega or dispensary or whatever the case may be, not all weed is created equal. Not all alcohol is created equal. So at the end of the day, and especially now with weed becoming legal, it's still not created equal. And I know
it's
this for a fact. Right, it's even worse. People putting fentanyl, people putting other chemicals to make it quote unquote stronger. So I mean, I know with me and my kids, because I got young adults, my thing is, okay, let me educate you about this. Let me tell you about this. Don't just take. One of my kids came home one day. Again, we try to open up the doors of communication and says, "Yeah, I've tried to vape before. Cool beans. All right, what vape did you have? I don't know. X, Y, and Z gave it to me, and I just tried it."
Yeah, boy.
There lies your problem. Don't do that ever again in your life. I need you to know exactly what you are ingesting into your system. If you want to try stuff, cool beans. Let me educate you so that you can try the right stuff. So that way, if somebody hands you something, you can say, you know what? What's in this? Let me see the package. Or where'd you get it from? I want to make sure it ain't got no fentanyl in it. Or not that you walk around with a fentanyl test in your pocket, but you can at least do your due diligence to say, you know what? I'm looking to have fun. I'm not looking to die.
Yo, it's so interesting that you say that, Ty, because I have, and I don't know about you, Tunde, but I've had this conversation with Trey already. And the conversation that I had with him was around, because he knows a lot of kids at his school who take, Ritalin and pills and stuff, whatever, right? And so we just started talking, and I was telling him, I was like, Trey, you hear all of these commercials for things, like you see all this stuff online, and there's all kinds of conversations happening about everything, right? Like, he want to know why I smoke cigars. He want to know, why I drink. And I explained to him about, you have to be a certain age in order to do these things, this, that, and the other. And I explained to him the way the conversation proceeded was, you need to understand that you may have someone who presents you with any number of these things. It could be alcohol, it can be cigarettes, it can be weed, it could be whatever, right? Any number of things. You should strongly consider, and I said strongly consider, but I also said you shouldn't. I say both of them. You should not do either one. You should not do any drugs or anything like that until you are well into your 20s. I said that's my personal opinion on it, because all of these things have the ability to change the way that the chemistry works in your brain. And that is why you see people who are addicted to things, because they started using them too young, and their bodies and their minds had not gotten to the point where they were able to adjust to the world around them without those things. And so I said, if you ever decide that you want to take a drink when you turn 21, or you want to smoke a cigar or a cigarette or a vape or whatever, make sure that you A, know where it came from, and B, are over the age of 20. That's all I'm asking for you. Do not do it while you're younger. And that's, and he may or may not listen to it. And he said, I'm never going to vape. I'm never going to smoke. And I'm like, cool. You know what I'm saying? I'm happy to hear you say that. And I hope that continues to be the case. I know the world is a changing thing, and something may change. But I was like, just think about it that way. Think about what can change for you if you take a substance that can in fact change your body. It can change your body, it can change your mind. And I said once you get to a certain age, it doesn't have that similar effect on everyone because your body has already reached a point where it understands how to live without those substances. And some people do it too early.
And I would encourage him to know his why. Know your why. Why do you want to take this substance? Why do you want to smoke weed? Why do you want to drink alcohol?
I'm curious, Daddy. I'm curious.
And if that's curious, and I'd rather you be curious with me than curious with one of your friends. Know your why, because I would rather me be there to observe, make sure you're okay, you're doing it the right way, so that way when you are, because again, we're not going to always be around. Unfortunately, but fortunately at the same time, we're not going to always be around. So we know that, like you said, John, that peer pressure is going to hit. Somebody may say, "Oh, I got this pill. It makes me do better on tests." Mm-hmm. Okay, if that's your why, let's talk about that first. Let's talk about what makes it help you do better on tests.
I'd be like, how you was doing on tests before you took it? Oh, you was doing bad. Well, I don't do bad on tests, so I don't need to take it.
Exactly. Exactly. So know your why. Whatever. Are you looking to have a good time? Okay, can you have a good time without it? Like, what is your why? Are you, just figure out what your why is before you just randomly start taking stuff.
I think it's also, for me, it's also just education too, right? Mm-hmm. So think about, like, for cigarettes. I mean, people gonna smoke cigarettes, and I think people that a lot of times people that like smoke cigarettes, especially when they smoke cigarettes like intensely, they understand the risk and have decided to either ignore it and move forward, right? So for me, it's like just education. Like, if vaping is like the new cigarette thing, right? Like, and that they're doing it much younger. So I had to deal with that with like my daughter, where it's like, she's they're going to the bathroom, they're doing it, it's scentless, like, so that, within vape you could do all types of stuff and just be able to kind of roll within your day and nothing not get detected. And for me, it's like education. Like, she needs to understand, like, again, to your point, it could be anything in there, and also know if you take this intensely, like, look what happens. So again, hey, if this could lead to cancer, this can lead to, like, we have asthma in the family, like, understand these are all things that could potentially come to you. And as long as you understand all those things and you're still making the decision to be able to move forward, then that's a totally different move versus moving in ignorance, right? It's like, again, preparation. My job is to be able to tell you, like, this is what it is, right? Then this is what happens, this is what could happen. And then, like, once you have everything laid out on the table, you make a decision, go left or right, that's on you. But you can't say you didn't know. Right. Mm-hmm. So I think that's the biggest thing as parents is we just want to prepare them. And then, like, hey, they're going to go out to the world. But I feel like having our kids go out there not knowing, right, is on us as parents, right? What they actually do is on them, but it's on us to be able to try our best to be able to educate them to the best we can. And then it's on them to be able to make a decision, like, based on that information.
And that's why I always encourage, and I hope, I know that you all do, because I know the both of y'all, to encourage your, to have that open dialogue with your kids. Yep. So that way, at the end of the day, they can come back and say, "Hey, Dad, I thought about X, Y, and Z," or I want to try.
Yeah,
exactly, and you can educate them because like you said, we can't educate them about everything, and we won't be with them around everything. But they can come back and they can call you and say, "Yo, I was experiencing X, Y, and Z, or I wanted to do, or I got a girl who da 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 da, or I got a guy who da 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 da. What should I do in this situation?" And like you said, Tunde, lay it all out on the table for them and give them have them make an informed decision rather than just sending them out there to the world and say, "Hey, somebody will teach you, or you'll learn on your own," or whatever the case may be at the end of the day.
Yeah. Well, hey, you know what? I think that did it. You know what I'm saying? I think we covered a lot in this hour or so that we've been chatting. We have we fixed all of the problems of the world. You know what I'm saying? I done told the world that I almost got kidnapped or
Yeah. I'm like,
catfished or
what was going on with you, boy?
yo. Hey, I was a young man.
He was going to get the chocolate from
I was
her.
I know you're a young man. I was like, I would have been that person, be like, you sure you want to do that, B? You want to do that?
I think
Like I would have told you to think about this. Give you an informed decision.
ain't nobody know. Ain't nobody even know where I went.
I
That
know.
I had.
Yeah,
So
see? Yeah.
Anyway,
The friends you had, you could have said that and nobody would have said something to you.
Oh.
Like, bro, what are you thinking?
bro. So hey, with that said, I'm gonna close this out with this thought. It ain't easy being a parent, as we know, but I think clearly the best thing that we can do is not hold stuff back from our kids, not hide it away from them. Being able to have those conversations when it's appropriate is a really important piece, and it'll help the kids understand where we're coming from, but it will also help us be able to communicate with them in a way that is open and honest and that is going to stick with them, hopefully, as they experience those moments. So, again, Ty, Tunde, thank you guys for coming through. Thank you for, always being, cheerleaders for this podcast. I appreciate you guys so much for helping out and being a part of this conversation. And there'll be many more. We're going to be back regularly. I'm not going to tell you how regular just yet, but it's going to be regular. So keep your eye out for more episodes of Daddy Confession. Thank you for tuning in. Peace.
Peace.